Hey everyone, I'm Margot. It is bright up here. Everyone said so, and I was like, no. Okay, here. So my name is Margot Boyer-Dry. I publish a newsletter called Lorem Ipsum, which is all about what's cool and why. I'm really interested in how the political climate influences what hip hop is coming out of Chicago, and how developments on messaging platforms inform what we eat. Things like that. It's kind of like a high-low trend reporting on top, sociology on the bottom. And if you're interested in those things, you should sign up at loremipsum.wtf. So I started Lorem Ipsum about 2.5 years ago as a side project. Now it's a full company with people working at it that are not just me. And as Felix was saying, I'm not the only one. So I want to welcome up my panelists up here. Come on down. And we'll talk to you all about newsletters, sit anywhere, how they reinforce media revenue models and how they become their own revenue models. So we have Elisabeth Goodridge, head of newsletters at the New York Times. She has been at the Times for about 10 years, is that right? 9. And been on newsletters for 1. She's their first newsletter head.
On the editorial side.
On the editorial side. We have Matt Kiser from What the Fuck Just Happened Today, which is a tremendous newsletter about basically chronicling the crazy in Washington every day. And he started writing it at the same time as the inauguration last year.
Started it a few days after the inauguration.
And people cared so much that he had to quit his job to write it and get paid by the people who care and read along with him. And then we have Jessanne Collins, who recently launched The Obsession, a new newsletter at Quartz. And she previously had been the editor-in-chief of print edition Mental Floss. So we all have different revenue models, different editorial, and I want to dig into all of those things. Tell me, so each of your organizations has a different age. I think the Times was born in 1851, is that right? Quartz, born in 2012. Matt, What the Fuck Just Happened Today, born in 2017.
294 days ago. Exactly.
Yeah. And nonetheless, all of you are less than a year into your job, or maybe just 1 year for Elisabeth. So why are your organizations interested in email, and particularly now?
I'll just go first. So what we've realized is that newsletters provide an excellent relationship. And a lot of stuff that I've heard spoken today at the panel also are issues that we talk about almost every day at the Times. But that relationship, Taco Bell, wherever you are, that brand affinity, that's pretty key for us. It's a daily habituation. The New York Times is in your inbox. We're so lucky that you wanted to sign up for an email from us. So here we are in your real estate, in this very valuable real estate. And also, it's a communication that we don't have to deal with any other third party or any sort of algorithm. We know exactly what you're going to see because we're creating it. So one-way, two-way street, you're seeing it. And that is an extremely valuable relationship that we don't have to deal with algorithms or any other social media that we don't even know if you'll ever actually see our journalism.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, email is one of the last places on the internet where you can own your relationship with your audience. And eventually, like, that will also go away. Like, we're seeing what, like, Google's doing with Inbox and, like, moving your emails around and, like, bundling them and all this other stuff. But, like, it's one of the last places on the internet where a brand can own their relationship with their audience. And it's also this, like, really personal. It's like really personal because someone has given you permission to send them a message into, like, one of the, like, private, most, like, holiest places on the internet, right, which is your inbox. So I think, like, the idea of, like, newsletters being relationships is, like, probably the most powerful way of thinking about it.
I would agree with all of those things. And I think insofar as how it plays into how Quartz thinks about the world. So Quartz was launched in 2012 as a digitally native, digitally forward news organization. And one of the core tenets, I think, from the beginning has been reaching the global business professional where they are through a variety of products that are not just a website, but there are an app, there's been the daily brief email for the last 5 years. So email just also, in addition to being all those things everybody said, for Quartz, I think is one of the sort of core mediums, really, of how our users interact with the world.
Great. So when each of us says that we run a newsletter, or 49 as the case may be for one of us, it's not
really
me. It's
tired
Elizabeth.
every day. Just kidding. There's lots of people who help.
What does that mean? What do you do? How much are you focused on editorial versus driving business? How do you spend a day?
So a big thing for me is that I've always been a journalist. I've been at the Boston Globe. I was at the Associated Press, always in the digital space. And this is really the first job that audience and product and editorial are equal. Before, in the tech world, you had to kind of understand a lot of different aspects that weren't just journalism. But in this job, it is just holistically the product. And I imagine you guys feel the same way. The design is very important. So is whether or not the deliverability is. And so you can't just write a story and send it off to your editor, and then they will have the copy editor look at it, and then someone else will send it out, and someone else will see the open rate. You actually have to care. So a lot of my job is educating our newsroom about these very important product elements, and also offering best practices. Again, there was no one overseeing editorial newsletters before, so it was a very decentralized experience. I was warned about these microphones. So kind of making sure that all of the different people, from the real estate editor to our fabulous cooking staff, kind of understand what will help them get more subscribers, what will improve their open rate, what about engagement, and then refining that and making it better and better, again, because these relationships are so key that we want to keep them and maintain them and increase the number of them.
Yeah, so I'm a one-man band. I do everything from source all my news, to writing it, to editing it, to setting up the blog, setting up the newsletter, sending it out, dealing with customer complaints, all that stuff. It's a lot of work, but it's actually it's probably my most interesting job ever, because I get to have broad exposure to all sides of all parts of a business, which makes me make better decisions as a result, because I don't have to talk to so-and-so in marketing and so-and-so in product to get something done for a customer, right? So the thing that's interesting about what I do is I think of what I do as an experiment, because the whole product is open source, including the content, which means I get people who I don't know going into GitHub and making pull requests to edit stuff I get wrong, to make grammar corrections, to make, today I totally messed up a poll number. I said 80% of people, Trump voters would not vote for a generic Republican in the next election. It turns out it was 8%. Whoops! Huge boo-boo.
10x.
Yeah, but I had a ton of people point that out, and not just point it out on Twitter, but go in and say hey, this is correct. And so I pick one of them and we approve that, and so now it's this. Now we have a conversation going. We have a relationship together. The audience is no longer the audience; they're the participant. They're involved in this process of creating content. So one of my total tangent here. Sorry. One of my favorite bands is this punk band from San Francisco called the Dead Kennedys, and their lead singer, his name's Jello Biafra, once said, "Don't hate the media, become the media." And I think that's always stuck with me. And so everything that I do is always about how do you get the community involved in what you're doing and become more of a shepherd and provide the platform for them to make the connections together, right? So I forgot what the rest of the question was.
What's your job, and what's the breakdown between editorial focus and business focus?
It's 99% editorial, 10% everything else. It's crazy. It's I wish I could spend more time thinking about the business and how to grow this, because it is this weird optional membership only, pay whatever you want get nothing in return thing. And it's super cool that people want to support it, but like I need to think about how to tighten that up a little bit and how to better engage the audience and make a better product as a result.
My focus is probably at least 80% editorial right now. Anyway, the obsession is only 8 weeks old, and it's still a very delicate, charming infant in a lot of ways, and it needs a lot of editorial care. I'm also very fortunate to work for a organization that has a whole business side to think about the business of it, and that's pretty awesome. But I do sort of to what Elisabeth was saying, think that one of the reasons that editorial is fun and interesting on the newsletter side is because there's a lot of relationship with product, there's a lot of thinking about audience and engaging with audience, and so some of the bigger picture things I spend my time thinking about that fall more into those categories when I'm not kind of just like rushing another email out the door at 3:45, which I'm working on, are how do we engage with those users, and how do we continue to improve the product, because it's still a new product too, and I have a great product team who technically knows how to make these beautiful things happen, but as it evolves and grows, there's obviously things that we want to play with and test, and so I do spend my time kind of thinking about what those things might be too, and how we might work together.
For anyone who doesn't know, The Obsession is a daily deep dive into a topic, like mezcal or bats, and it culls information from courts and other places and tells you everything you ever wanted to know in like a 5-minute read about that topic. It's delightful, and you should
And
sign
it's
up.
beautifully designed. I'm a big fan.
I did not design it, but thank you. I did kind of like editorially, bring it to life. And so, yeah, the one-line pitch of it is that it's a daily, I call it an interactive daily deep dive into the most fascinating corners of the global economy, which, by the way, encompasses everything in the world is in the economy. So we can talk about mezcal and bats and fatbergs and sinkholes and all kinds of things.
Awesome. Yeah, on that note, how do you learn what your readers want from your products? How do you test? How do you iterate? And maybe if you can think of one example of something that you've hypothesized on and been proven correct, we'd love to know.
So one thing we're doing is, we built The Obsession to be very interactive, which is neat. There's a poll functionality right in the email where you can take a little poll. I see the results. Depending on how the settings work, you can actually leave little comments in there sometimes. And in the beginning, people were doing that all the time and kind of like writing in the write-in slots all kinds of extra things. So most of the time we use the poll functionality just to do sort of a silly little question that kind of engages people and, it feels like a fun thing. Sometimes we use it to be like, what topic would you like to see covered, next week? We've also just recently, in the last couple of weeks, kind of caught our breath enough to start experimenting with engaging the reader in kind of like a more hand-done way day to day, where we'll know that we're working on a topic for later in the week, and we'll kind of seed a question or a discussion point into the email. And so we'll say, we'll kind of tease the topic, and we'll invite the user to respond and interact. So for example, when I was doing the mezcal email, I asked, there isn't a lot of time always to put layers and layers of thought into this, so it really just said something like, what's your favorite mezcal cocktail or something? And so people sent in all of these drink recipes and all of this stuff, but the response I ended up running was this woman who was like, she went on this long, really eloquent tangent about why you shouldn't mix mezcal into cocktails. You should sip it, and here's what you're looking for when you're tasting the different ones, and how the different flavors of the different Villages, our parent, and I ended up running the whole thing as a chunk in the email and it felt like a very reader sourced, like passion, like that felt to me like both a bunch of useful information and a really good example of who we're appealing to and like why the obsession exists in the first place, because we're kind of connecting with this obsessive person who's going to almost write the email for me sometimes. So that's been really neat. And we're really just very much in the beginning of doing that, I think, and kind of playing with the creative ways that we might do that in the future.
I just ask. I run my newsletter and blog is like personality driven, so I just ask whatever's on my mind, but I actually do it in kind of a very strategic fashion. One is when I want like quantitative data, I will push people over into a form and have them answer that there, which is great. Get nice lots of charts and stuff. But when I actually want to have more qualitative data, I also send my emails from my personal email address. So every vacation responder gets bounced back to me, and my email is a total mess all the time. But I'll just ask people and have them reply to the email, and it blows up my inbox, which is fine. But I get amazing data out of this. I get so many great insights, and then I sit down with a large cup of coffee, and I reply to every single one. And I never miss any of these, and I do that for two reasons. One, we're building a relationship, and two, every person that replied to that email, and then I reply back to it, that's sending a stronger signal to the ESPs to put my email in their inbox, not in the promos tab, not in the updates, but in their inbox. And so it's a great strategy that works, but don't abuse that privilege, right?
What's your favorite color?
What's that?
I think you should just troll your audience.
Yeah, I mean,
But people probably love hearing from you.
right.
They absolutely love hearing from you. It's a relationship. Emails from breaking news alerts all the way to a closed experience like the interpreter, and we've realized that one, data is huge, surveys are huge, but also using our news judgment, and then doing any sort of surveys or feedback. And an example that is off the charts successful was our pop-up newsletter about the most recent season of Game of Thrones. And the TV editor came up to me and said, I want to do a newsletter. It's going to be 8 cents, and that's it. And I said, okay, but it has to have a personality, and we have to offer them something exclusive. There's going to be so much online about this season of Game of Thrones to give them something new and it was extraordinarily good, and it was not my idea, but I'm so proud of it. And it was because we went back constantly and asked people what they wanted, and we offered them a great voice, and again, we offered them content about something they were passionate about. So that was a huge success for us. We're
Can
really
I just
proud.
add one little bit there? I also do this weird thing where every time I ask a question, I share the responses. So when I ask people I don't know what question, I can't think of one.
Right.
I'll collect all the best answers and share that back to the audience. It proves that I'm listening, and it builds a deeper relationship as a result.
Habituation and stuff. For our fashion newsletter, we rebranded called Open Thread. It's Vanessa Friedman's email. So every week, she will take a question from the reader. What are the 3 pairs of shoes I should vacation? What's a bag I should bring to a black tie event? She will then answer in the most recent newsletter, and then it's just this wonderful feedback loop from readers to Vanessa Friedman. She's telling you how you should dress. It's pretty fucking awesome. Yeah, I guess so.
You can use mine. Maybe.
Okay.
Are you
No.
okay, great. So how these relationships are deep and meaningful, which I know from my own experience as well. How do they become money for your organizations?
You're asking money? The money question?
Money. How
Money
do you make
question?
money through your emails?
Okay, so we do ads, of course, programmatic ads. We are a subscription-driven company, however. We certainly like the ads, but we're going more and more towards subscription, so sign up, please. And we look at newsletters multiple ways. Yes, ads, but also as a way to extend our brand, retention, and how that transforms into digital subscriptions. So.
I have this really weird choose your own adventure membership model. So everything is free. There are no ads, no sponsorship, no like paid inclusions, no Outbrain widgets or whatever. I just say, hey, if you like what I'm doing and this is creating value in your life, here's a place where you can pay me whatever you want, one time, recurring, and I'll be able to keep doing this for you. And so what it does is aligns, like the incentives are aligned from top to bottom, that I can continue to do this if you can continue to support me, but that assumes that I'm providing something that's worthwhile to support, And then I also run kind of like an NPR style like quarterly membership drive where I sell like a limited edition t-shirt and stickers, and like that's it. And people are like, why don't you sell stickers and t-shirts all the time? I'm like, I don't want to be in the shipping business. Like, I want to be in the like delivering content business and running a business, So that's how I make money. But I don't think I'll ever serve an ad ever.
We sell sponsorships. Everything at Quartz is, as I mentioned, kind of designed to be its own freestanding product. So the obsession is on a menu of sponsorship opportunities when it goes out from the marketing team to clients. So is how I imagine it. We have, marketing team that works with that. But basically, we launched with a sponsor, so there was ads in it, and that's kind of the plan going forward.
Elisabeth, can we dig in a little bit more? Because you have so many newsletters and some
Sure.
of them make money in different ways. From what I understand, some have incorporate product for affiliate revenue, some air ads directly, some are subscription only.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you determine which newsletter fits which model?
Sure. There's no subscription, like we don't pay for it. We don't have any subscription only. Okay. So we bought the Wirecutter. They're affiliate links. So those newsletters are affiliate link revenue. And then it just we just need to figure out kind of what type of newsletter it is and going from there. Right now we do some sponsorships and we do ads. And whether or not that's not really in my purview on how, but I'm happy to talk further about it with someone else who could answer that question better for you. Okay.
So I guess this is a little bit more for Matt and Elisabeth, since your newsletters are older, and it sounds like the obsession has had like zero churn. Congrats. How do you keep people engaged?
Do you want to go first? I have that. How do you keep people engaged? You got to give them really good content. So a good newsletter, expert voice, coming from an expert with a conversational tone, like our colleagues here, or my panelists here, to a targeted audience. You got to give them what they want, and then best practices, refine that, and then you've got to give them engagement. So actually caring and showing you care, everything from list hygiene to giving them what they want to making sure that they're not bombarded with so many different emails at the same time. All of these things are first and foremost on how to make a good newsletter and how to keep people interested in opening.
Pretty much the same stuff. Like, it's kind of like checking all the boxes around like anything you would do as like a SaaS company, right? How would you do like re-engagement campaigns? So like when I notice that like a huge cohort of users are no longer opening emails, like I trace back like where did they come from, like why is this a case? And a lot of times it's fatigue. Like I run a daily political news blog, like or newsletter, like people fatigue out of that because politics sucks. Like, but like one thing that works for me as a personality-driven newsletter is admitting that it sucks, and like I'm tired too, and I'm frustrated, and I just want to tune this out. I don't want to be doing this. Like, to be honest, like I'd rather have a real job. This is super cool though, but like I would prefer not to be covering the Trump White House. And like that honesty is like what goes back to the idea of relationship. Like people get it. They're like, there's just some dude in Seattle with his cat, like writing a blog and a newsletter for me every day, telling me like what the fuck just happened today. And some people, I look at the unsubscribe like survey stuff all the time. I'm like really curious as to reasons why people unsubscribe. And it's like fatigue. It's always fatigue. It's not like I hate this or you're a liberal like crazy nut person. I'm not. I'm pretty like centrist. but like people are just fatiguing, and so like I'm using that information as to how to better serve them in the future. So like, is there a weekly version of this? Is there a monthly version of this? Is there a like something that looks more similar to like, I don't know, Reddit version of this, where people can collaborate and work together to like help each other stay informed at the like cadence and the pace that they prefer. So yes.
Matt, do you ever find that someone has found your newsletter errantly and they're angry at your political coverage?
Not really. The F-bomb in the name is like really like draws a pretty clear line in the sand, and if you take like 2 seconds to look at what it is, like you're self-selecting, and that's what actually like keeps my list like extremely healthy and engaged, and like extremely high open rates and click-through rates and all those things. Is that people self-selected into this thing, and I promised them something. I said I'll tell you what happened today, and I just do that, and I never stray from that mission. And you know, like people like that. They appreciate that relationship.
Yeah, as a fellow publisher with WTF in the name, it's a strong string. So how do people find your newsletters? You have a whole ecosystem. You don't. You do. Do people find things from within your platforms, from without? How does it all work?
Yeah, so the Obsession launched 2 months ago, and we did something kind of dangerous and edgy, which was to seed our subscribers into the Daily Brief subscribers. So Quartz's Daily Brief has existed for 5 years. It's kind of meant to be an all-in-one, first thing in the morning, everything you need to know about what's happening in the global economy. It's very sharp, to the point. It's got a voice, but it's the news, and there's like a tight essentialness to it, and I think that's why people really love it. It has really good retention rates and really good open rates 5 years in. We started sending some of the most engaged users of this email that comes out in the afternoon. It's full of GIFs and polls and quizzes, and it's about bats, and it's about fatbergs and all of this crazy stuff. And we were kind of like, we don't know what's going to happen, because these are clearly different products. We saw very few drop-offs, and I think that's testament to the fact that there's an underlying Quartz vision to this thing, that the people who respond really well to the Daily Brief and care about getting their news that way are also interested in the topics that we're interested in. We're choosing them very carefully with that in mind, and we're delivering smart content. So I feel like I kind of went a different direction than the question there, which was how do you, did I start answering the last question? What happened? How do people find me? Okay, so how people found us in the first place was we just showed up one day in their inbox, and we were like, hi, you can unsubscribe if you want, but here's this thing you might be interested to know about polyester. And that it worked for us largely. And so being so new, we really haven't done a lot with growth efforts. I think it's been pretty organic and word of mouth, except to say that obviously we kind of advertise it on QZ.com. There's really cool little ads that showcase exactly how cool and interactive the email is and the breadth of topics that we do. And we do seed it into the other push products that we do. So in the app and in the Daily Brief, we will do little cross-pollination of topics and mentions. So it's all, so far, our audience has been kind of within the audience, the core Quartz audience to begin with. I think down the road, when we have a little time to breathe, we'll start to think about sharing tools and how we might kind of expand beyond that. But in this point in time, that's happened.
I kind of have a few different ways I think about growth. Because I don't sell ads, like I'm not incentivized for page views. And so I think of like every activity you would do to get page views to a blog post, I think about that as just marketing for the newsletter. So I don't use like any of the MailChimp like campaign archive stuff. I have that all as blog posts. They're all like optimized for social and search. And I use that to like promote into these channels, which obviously tracks people back to the blog. But then I have a nice big like call to action up on top that's like, yo, get this in your inbox. Just put in your email address and you're good to go. I do things like so my thing is like a 1 through X list of things that happen today. And I'll share this on Twitter as like a tweet storm. So it's like, here's what the fuck happened today, 1 through 10. But like I link back to like my own blog, and what's happening is like people are like obviously like discovering the brand, becoming aware of it, which is like the low, like, you know, or the highest part of awareness in the funnel, right? But like as more people come to the site, they convert. Cool. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't like boost posts or like do any like paid promotion on social or Google. I don't know why I do that, but I can't because I have an F-bomb in my URL, and they said no, and so everything's organic. So for me, the way I grow is delivering on value of what I've like promised, right? It's that relationship again. And so most of my signups come from referrals of people actually forwarding the email, which is something that I think we've all talked about, but like you rarely like see that, and it's really hard to like track that, and it's really hard to understand like why like those mechanisms are in place. But like from where I sit, probably half of my signups come through email forwards that become referrals. The other like third quarter, I guess, is like through search, and the last quarter is through social. But it's all very like word of mouth driven, and it's very much about like Uncle Joe being like, I received this from my nephew who like got it from so and so, blah blah blah, and like people email me and they're like, yeah, my nephew sent this to me, it sounds cool, can't wait. And I'm like, all right, cool, like this is weird. It's super fun. So it's like it's that old like school word of mouth, like deliver on value, and like good things happen.
Can you dig in a little bit more to search? How good is the SEO on any given post of yours?
So I'm the beneficiary of the like the quote unquote Trump bump, right? It's like everyone's interested in like politics for the first time and never, and it's like. So I launched like this like right as like the travel ban happened, right? And people literally were like, what the fuck just happened? They're like, we just like aren't letting people into the country now? And that's the kind of thing that like people were searching for. And I stumbled into this. This wasn't like a market research thing where I'm like, how many like Google searches for this are there? But like when you like couple like what the fuck happened with like Trump or the White House or politics or Republicans, like there's a lot of search volume for that. And so I rank very well, and I have some other like strategies for those sort of things that are like way too in the weeds probably for right this second, but if you want to talk about them, I'm more than happy to. But yeah, I think it's a big part of it is like what happened today in the White House, and that's just what I do. And so it's a very organic search term. But.
So cross-pollination is a big one for us too, and everyone, if you have an email product, you should always have forward this to, did you receive this from a friend? Sign up here. Forward this to your friend. You are very strong in your language, and I imagine it helps a great deal. But it's a very social thing, is you want people to forward emails and let them know these great products that land in their inboxes. And if they are forwarded from people they trust, they will sign up because they value that person's judgment of them and their wants and needs. Other ways that we get signups we've been very lucky when we post sign-up modules on our homepage. Dealbook launched this morning with a brand new redesign, so we have a homepage module for that. On every kind of related article, we have automated inline promos on pages. We're thinking, of course, if you're reading Dealbook online or a fashion story online, you'd respectively want to sign up for that Dealbook newsletter or that open thread newsletter. But, and then finally, cross-promotion. For example, Bits is highlighted in Dealbook. Open Thread has Off the Moment. Just thinking that, okay, if you like this newsletter, you'll probably like this one. And it's been very successful in that regard.
Well, so to get a little bit specific, why does Nicholas Kristof get to have his own newsletter? And why does Australia get to have their own newsletter?
I love this. Thank you so much. Okay, so he's Exhibit A on how a voice works. and a columnist is very, very good because they are voicey. So we've noticed that a lot of successful newsletters come from people with voice. So we like that. Vanessa Friedman, Sam Sifton, Nicholas Kristoff. And it really just kind of figures out, like, do you have the time? I think both of you guys, weekly, daily, they are a lot of work. So how much time to make a really good newsletter, right? So talking to columnists and making sure they have the time, making sure they have the support staff, and they are willing to continue to refine it. The other thing with Australia, we're pouring in millions of dollars for a global expansion, and we're looking at countries that speak English because it just naturally makes sense for us to go there first. So we've launched a Canada Letter newsletter written by one of our correspondents based in Canada, a Canadian native. We shot down one of our most trusted digital native reporters down to Sydney. I mean, he has this great life, Damien Cave. He's a great, talented reporter, and he lives in Sydney now, like 2 steps from the beach. And he writes our Australia letter. And we were using them not only as kind of gateways to our content, but also to build these relationships with readers down there, and then also people who are interested in Australia or interested in Canadian events.
So same with California then.
And same with California and New York Today.
Yeah.
So.
Nice. And then, Matt, you alluded to your community, but I suspect there's a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, look, I'm like, again, like I see what I did as like a very opportunistic, I guess, but like I was just doing a project and I stumbled into this. Now I do it full time, which is cool. But the community around politics and caring about like what happened in the election and the outrage that happened and like, you know, how do you get millions of people organized and to show up on the right time in the right place in the right city and have the Women's March, like that's like, there's a movement there, right? This community exists. It just needed people to help like shepherd it and give them the tools to like go out and do something about whatever it is they're into, right? And so for me, I don't do anything that says like this is what the news means or this is what you should think about it. What I do is I say this is what happened. Here's the facts. And when you don't try and tell people how to think, you allow the ideas to kind of sprout up organically. And when I put something like a forum, like an old school forum, I'm like Internet 1.0 here. I have a forum and a newsletter. And I put a forum in place, and like now I have a community of hundreds of thousands of people with the ability to now communicate with each other and talk. And so I have things like random people who have never met and I've never met. They're keeping like a live updated calendar of like what's going on in Congress like this week and next week and like, you know, what were the outcomes of previous votes and stuff. It's like this fascinating project that's just organically happening. And then I have like some people that are trying to like track the current status of like where are we at with like the travel ban or the healthcare. And it's like, this is stuff that like journalists are paid to do and do extremely well. And then I have these random people in like Nowhereville somewhere, I don't know, who are like doing like amazing journalistic work for free. And they're not professionals, but they're just trying to contribute to something. And I think that's a big piece of, when we talk about relationships and community building, we're talking about giving people the tools to be successful. And that's kind of like where I've netted out. And like, again, like the whole thing's open source. So if like you're techie enough to know what GitHub is and a pull request, like you can commit code to the site, which has happened. And then you can commit copy to the site and like, you know, fact check and correct. And there's a layer of like editing in there, and there's a layer of approval. But I don't think I'm the guy that has all the answers or knows like how you should think. And so I just want to, I present that very transparently and honestly, and then I get out of the way and let the community like take over at that point. That was long. I'm sorry.
That was great. Yeah, interpreting the word community in a slightly different way as readers. Jessanne, what you told us a second ago is that you took all of your subscribers from another newsletter and just put them on a new one, and everyone was cool with it. Yeah. What?
Not literally everyone. I mean, there was a number of drop-offs that was smaller than expected. I think we kind of like anticipated a big one because everybody gets plenty of email, and people aren't usually very keen on it when you just sign them up for another thing, even if, you sort of are allowed to within the wheelhouse of, they agreed to something from you in the first place. I think, the pressure of doing it well, obviously, is there. And I guess it speaks to the, like what I was kind of saying before about the really sort of clear vision that Quartz has for what it does, and that the way that connects with the community and the readers. There's a level of trust maybe that if Quartz is sending me something, it's going to be good and worth my time, even if, at first glance it's on this topic that I think is kind of random, and I don't immediately see how it connects to my life. I see it as my job to make that topic connect to your life and to feel really urgent and interesting and accessible to you, and to kind of give that to you, the reader, as my gift in exchange for the trust that you gave Quartz in letting us send you a product right to your inbox. So yeah, I guess it's kind of like a more macro level way of saying the same thing. It's about understanding what our readers are looking for and just making sure that we're delivering that in the best way possible.
Okay, so to recap, Mezcal as urgent and accessible, right?
Yes. I could make that argument all day. It's very urgent and accessible.
It's 5, everyone. I think we have a couple minutes for audience questions. Not that I can see any of you, but yeah, seriously. All right, we'll just hand it.
Hi, so video is everywhere now, whether it's Insta, Live, Facebook Live. How do you, as people who work on newsletters and create content, incorporate videos? Have you experimented with that in any way? And can you talk about what the reaction has been, or has it been successful, or is it something that you haven't tried yet?
I think for most people, you still have to get people back to your site because of the providers not supporting video. So we have one newsletter about Times Video kind of coming from the desk. We have formatted it so the CTA is a big watch button as opposed to clicking on a headline for the hyperlink back. And I think with video, as everyone knows, they're constantly evolving and trying to figure out how to make this thing work and then continue to work. And our audience development team is pretty top-notch, evolving how newsletters can help them with their video strategy.
I don't know if I have a comment on that. It's just like so far outside of my scope.
Yeah, same thing, I think, as Elizabeth said. I think we were really hopeful that we were going to be able to crack this code in certain providers, and then it wasn't happening. But I'm optimistic that there's enough experimentation going on, in the technical side and the aspects that maybe someday.
So one of the things about email is the challenge, at least, is certainly perception is kind of an old school, mature channel, and hopefully everyone sees that a little differently today. And I'm an old school email geek, but particularly for New York Times and Quartz, did you have challenges to get investment in email, even though it does all those things, retention, you can monetize it? And did you have people at Quartz say, why in the world would we do an email newsletter versus let's do a YouTube video for the same topics or Instagram stories? Was there a challenge on selling email as the vehicle?
For Quartz, I don't think so. I think it seemed really very natural to the Quartz mission of delivering the news where the people are. I mean, I think there's an acknowledgement that we all still read our email and check it, 76 times a day or whatever that is. And that if anything, I mean, I'm kind of speaking to things that happened before I was there, but I think if I could interpret backwards, it would seem to me that it seemed 5 years ago when the Daily Brief was launching that it was an underutilized space. Like, here's this place where you have people's full attention. Nobody's doing it very well 5 years ago. So why not have that be one of the core things that is going to be how we deliver our message to our audience? To me, personally, it still seems relevant, and I think that's fair to say about Quartz's kind of worldview too, and how people are getting information.
So what we saw is that readers still really appreciate email. It's convenient for them. They can be very selective of what they get. And we had a couple of early experiments several years ago with the morning briefing that led to other newsletters that just continue to be more successful than we ever dreamed because readers like them. And it turns out our journalists really like them too because of this relationship, because of this communication. They don't have to fight about page one or the homepage. And of course they still do, but the fact that they can connect with these readers who are passionate about their journalism right there. So we're pretty lucky.
I just want to add something. This is more like a thought from like where I sit. Is I think people have overdosed on the stream, the like infinite stream, and something like email is like really an old school thing in that it's like an addition, and additions of things have an edge. They have an end to it, and I think something like email that comes, even marketing emails that come at like whatever interval they come at that interval, right? And then they have an end to them, which is the bottom of the email, and you're done. Or anytime you exit it. Whereas when you're on Twitter or Facebook or Pinterest or whatever, like shit's like goes on forever. And yeah.
People love to click delete. I think I have 13,000 emails in my inbox, but I'm still gonna fucking clean that one day, you know? And so that's very satisfying to get to the end. And then, or say you're not going to read it right now and you're going to save it for later. I don't have to teach you how to use archive in inbox because you can just leave it in your inbox, or you can archive it and come back for later. So not having to teach them how to use a brand new tool that might frustrate them and say, oh, I'm never going to use this app again, is pretty powerful. So, yeah.
I ran out of Gmail space this week. Yeah. Sign up for a lot of newsletters. Sorry, other people can ask questions now.
Yeah, Matt, as I was just signing up for your email, I saw you have a podcast, and I know I'm a big fan of The Daily from the New York Times as well. I was just wondering if you're seeing that as part of your kind of brand strategy too, in terms of getting your content out there, or any cross-promotion within your podcasts and to your newsletters.
Yeah, so the podcast is basically, first of all, the podcast is produced and recorded, all the things, by a community member who just wanted to do it, and he just took the initiative to like start it. And we worked together to make it better than the first draft, but it was all on him. And it's pretty much verbatim like what's on the site with kind of some editorial judgment. And people tell me, they're like, why would you do that? You're cannibalizing your newsletter and stuff. And I'm like, no, dude, like, if people want to receive this content on the podcast, like in their ears, that's cool. I'd rather deliver it to them where they want to be. It's exactly like the Quartz philosophy here, right? And so, and I have an Alexa skill that another community member created, and it's like, cool, it's over there if you want it. You just ask WTF just happened, and she reads robot stuff. And so when it comes time for me to do like that membership drive, that pledge drive, I can say, look, you've been listening to this thing in your ears for like every day for weeks. You got $3? And you know, a very small percentage of people will say, yes, I have $3. But when you deal with like, you know, hundreds of thousands of people, like a small percent, $3 of a small percentage is like actually a lot of money. It's enough to at least do this and fly to New York and stuff. And no one's getting rich here though. I'm not.
Hi. Thank you for the panel. Really appreciate. Sorry. Really appreciated the discussion. There are a lot of different things that can influence open rates of email, subject line, the from field, what time you send. I'm curious what each of you have found. If, time of day, A/B testing, what you found most effective and to what extent you monitor that on an ongoing basis.
With the obsession, we have not done much experimenting yet. The concept of it is that it's designed to be an afternoon kind of evening commute read, like you're unwinding from your busy news cycle day with just some interesting, relevant content. So we send it out in the late afternoon. It goes out around the world in the late afternoon. So the first edition goes out 4 p.m. In the U.S., and then it's staggered around the world. We kind of designed it with that in mind, like as a kind of unwind read rather than like a quick morning consumption. We want to definitely experiment with A/B testing and subject lines and stuff, and have not gotten there yet, nor with like kind of tweaking. So the short answer is I don't know.
So our short answer is that we're continuing to refine it by A/B testing across the board, trying to figure out what works, subject lines, content structure, that sort of thing. I think you're just hurting yourself if you're not.
I'll be the contrarian in the room. I refuse to do any kind of A/B testing, even though like I come from like a background of like deep product experience where all we did was A/B test stuff. I find like for what I do, it's unique in that I need to create a daily habit and be consistent with that and just like deliver on what I promise day in, day out, and not get like cute with being like half these people got this version of it with pictures and half these people got this version without pictures. No, everyone gets no pictures. Like it's just black and white. It is the MailChimp basic template. Literally, that's all it is. But I think there's things to do like. That said, I experiment all the time. I just don't think I want to get cute with like A/B testing content and stuff like that. Also, I'm just one guy. I can't do that.
Black and white. Is there a better word to close this conference? Is there one more question? Okay, I get it. One more. Okay, right.
So Matt, yes, that's cool. It'd be a good one. Matt, I imagine that you probably didn't spend a lot of money trying to grow, your newsletter. I was just curious, and you don't have to like give exact numbers, but I was curious if you could give some sense of what the growth curve has been like and where that growth has come from.
Yeah. So let's see. In the early days, it was exponential, legitimately for probably 4 months straight, exponential. And then the curve's flattened a lot. A lot of that has to do with the summer, fatigue, and like the administration's kind of chilled out a little bit. It's not as crazy, right? Like, the whole it bleeds, it leads stuff. Like it hasn't been as like nuts. And what was the second half of your question? I reach 250,000 people a day across platforms and stuff. And that continues to grow every day. Net subscribers are always like 10x unsubscribes, or however you say that. I don't know I'm not good at numbers. But there's way more subscribers than unsubscribes every day, and it's cool.
I guess I get to close. We did it, guys. First person to subscribe to all 49 New York Times newsletters wins. And let's all go have fun.
Stick around for the warehouse party, everybody.